Hi, good morning, everybody. I hope you're all well, and welcome to the first Sustainable Food Places campaign's breakfast meetings. I'm glad everyone is getting into the spirit by bringing their teas or coffees. So that's precisely what we want. And also we decided to call them breakfast meetings to differentiate them from the Sustainable Food Places coordinator meetings that also started last week, and they will be monthly. So my name is Sofia Parente, for those who don't know me. I'm the Sustainable Food Places Policy and Campaigns Coordinator, and I also coordinate the Veg Cities campaign. I'm joined by my co-host, Vera Zakharov. Do you want to say hello and introduce yourself?
Of course. Hi, I'm Vera. I think pretty much everybody here knows me fairly well. I am the local action coordinator for Sustainable Food Places, and as part of that, I coordinate the Sugar Smart campaign. And that's me. I'll be speaking soon.
Yeah. And we have a third member in our campaigns team at Sustain, Ren Piercy. She's not here today because she's on annual leave. She's taking a well-deserved break, but she'll join us for the next one. And so this is the first meeting. We hope to make these meetings a regular for us. And the objective is really to connect with each other and share. We haven't seen each other at the annual Sustainable Food Places conference this year. It would be a great place to meet and connect. We would normally be visiting places, going to campaign launches, to campaign events around the country. Obviously, that's not happening now. So, but what we're finding is that there's a lot more online meetings happening. So we want this to be a place to share and connect. And we would love to, to hear from more of you. We'll have 2 campaign presentations today, but if you're interested in presenting your work at a future meeting, and if you're interested in seeing a particular issue brought to these meetings, please let me and Vera know. So we're very keen to hear your feedback, so get in touch. So a bit of housekeeping just before we get started. So this meeting is being recorded, you probably noticed that, and all slides and everything that is shared here will be on the SFP web pages for webinars, along with the recording. And if you have any questions, any interesting web links or information you want to share, please use the chat function, and I see people already started to post, so keep using that. If you have any questions for the presenters today, please pop them in the chat as well. And in terms of the agenda today, this is where I can share something. I'm just going to put it up there. So I'm just going to give you a very quick Veg Cities update, and Vera will give you a very quick Sugar Smart update as well, because alongside the support we're giving to the local campaigns, we also coordinate national actions throughout the year, and these are actions whereby, by joining forces with other organizations, with yourselves on the ground, we can really achieve changes at the national level. So we'll give you a bit of update in terms of what's happening and opportunities for you to join us. But then we also are going to hear from campaigns. And we're going to hear from Anna Clark. She's from the Enriched, and she's the Sugar Smart Wandsworth coordinator as well. And she's going to give us a really interesting presentation about what they're doing in Wandsworth and how they went digital on their comms plan. So this should be really interesting, because it's how they adapted their campaign to go online and to make the most of these changing times. And then we'll have Pearl Costello from Food Cardiff. So she manages the Veg Cities Cardiff campaign, and she's going to talk to us about how they've adapted as well, and how they've geared to do a lot of support to home growers, and we'll see some of the results of that campaign. And she's also going to talk to us a little bit about the campaigns dashboard, which is a tool we use to record impact locally and how that links to the Peas Please monitoring report. So this is the plan for today, and yeah, feel free to use the chat function to keep popping ideas or questions. So very quickly, I'm going to give you a Veg Cities update. So I know we have 2 new Veg Cities coordinators here. So I'm going to show this slide very quickly because all the others are familiar with this. Because in the beginning, everyone was asking, so what's the difference between Veg Cities and Peas Please and Veg Power? Are they the same? Are you guys connecting? And yes, we're all connecting. So we're Veg Cities, we're Sustainable Food Places feature campaign, and we're all about local action on veg. And we're linking up with Peas Please, which is a national program working to achieve pledges from the big actors from the food system, from farmers to retailers to caterers, governments. And we're also linking up with the Veg Power advertising campaign. And Pearl, who you'll hear from a bit later, wears 2 of these hats because she's the Veg Cities Cardiff coordinator. But Peas Please is a collaboration of the Food Foundation, Nourish, WWF, and Food Cardiff. So she's involved from that side as well. And now a bit of a Veg Cities update. So as I said before, you're all doing wonderful work locally, and you have your own campaign objectives locally. And what campaigning locally allows us to do is to target a particular issue that is of importance locally, or a key group of people. But we have moments when we organize coordinated actions at the national level. And at Veg Cities, we were involved recently with a campaign to reinstate the school fruit and veg scheme, which is a scheme that gives every child in primary school from the ages of 4 to 6 in England a free piece of fruit or vegetables. So there's 2.3 million children receiving school fruit and veg scheme. And after this scheme was paused in March after school closed, it wasn't reinstated even when in June many reception and year 1 children went back to school. So we mounted a campaign with other organizations, with parents, with MPs, to try and get clarity and push for the reinstatement of this scheme as soon as possible. So I know this is very relevant to England. There's no comparable scheme in the other nations, although in Scotland, some local authorities fund free fruit in schools. But obviously that's not as stable, because we know that whenever there's cuts to local authorities' budgets, often these schemes are cut as well. But we want to continue to campaign to expand the school fruit and veg scheme to all children in primary school, not just those in reception year 1 and year 2. And very importantly, we want to see more British fruit and veg sourced to the scheme, and especially fruit and veg from organic and other sustainability sustainable sources, because this will give a boost to British farming as well. So the campaign will continue. In the autumn, we hope to organize another e-action and invite all our supporters to get in touch with their MPs, because we want to bring this much more into MPs' radars. We think it will be a low-cost measure that will really help to boost fruit and veg consumption for all children, and to bridge some of the inequalities that exist at the moment, because we know that children from poorer backgrounds consume less fruit and vegetables. So we think it's a great idea, and I hope you join us. And this is my very quick update. Vera, do you want to give a Sugar Smart update?
Absolutely. Hi. So I think, as some of you will know from our communications, myself and Ren from Sugar Smart, is although obviously Sustain and Sustainable Food Places has, as many of you guys as well, really shifted focus on to really focus on the impacts of COVID-19 on food access and just the wider impacts of lockdown on our food experiences. However, we have continued doing a bit of communication with our Sugar Smart network. And one of the things that we have been doing is gathering some examples from local Sugar Smart and local Sugar Smart campaigns and others doing healthy eating campaigns in terms of how they've been promoting healthy eating messages and continuing to engage with their local partners while on lockdown. So I could share screen. I don't really have a presentation, but let me see. I'll test out this this method. So basically, sorry, I've not done this before. There we go. So one of the things that we've done, and I'll put it in the chat, is we did a feature on the Guernsey Sugar Smart campaign. Falling outside of the United Kingdom, but part of the British Isles, who have been doing, they really kind of focus on taking their campaign online and have utilized this kind of movement around people, particularly families, putting visuals in their windows. And so really kind of connecting with the ethos around supporting the NHS, connecting this narrative around eating healthily while at home. We have also continued to engage with local campaigns around some of the other issues that have been coming up, particularly around children's food and free school meals that our colleagues at Sustain, particularly the Children's Food Campaign and other colleagues within our alliance have been focusing on. So we haven't really been silent. However, we have been kind of gathering some intel from campaigns in terms of what they're doing really well, what they're kind of learning about sort of promoting sugar reduction in this sort of new normal of a world where we're not necessarily connecting face-to-face the way we certainly have in previous months and years. But we're also looking at sort of where the opportunities are and, you know, where else to kind of take our Sugar Smart campaign. So at the moment, we're definitely in a process of reworking our work plan for 2020, 2021. Just quickly, I do want to talk about something we have up ahead. But one of the things that actually has come up is from a couple of local areas is whether we can look at ways that healthy eating messages could be promoted, you know, where people do kind of, even if they're not like visiting community spaces in the same way that they used to, or perhaps leisure centers, you know, other spaces where healthy eating messages have been promoted. But, you know, what are other ways to reach people? So in addition to going digital, we're considering, you know, the high streets and other spaces where local authorities can have a kind of a space to communicate with members of the public. I'm going to go ahead and stop the share. This is just wanted to show this picture. This is a campaign, sort of a high street advertising campaign that we worked on last year and earlier this year to develop visuals that local areas can actually use where they have advertising space on things like bus shelters. I'm going to go ahead and stop the share because I don't have any other pictures for you guys at the moment. But the other thing to mention before I pass on to Anna from Wandsworth is that in the next few weeks and like month and a half, we are going to be doing a coordinated action around the local spend of sugar levy income. So as I'm sure you guys know, the funds that are raised through the soft drinks industry levy its intention is to go towards work that improves children's access to healthy food. However, one of the issues we have at the moment is there is no kind of targeted focus of that funding, or something akin to ring fencing at the moment. There's nothing promised. So we're actually looking to develop a kind of an argument for setting up a new fund. We're kind of trialing different names for it, but it basically be something along the lines of Children's Healthy Food Innovation Fund. And the idea is that this would argue for the government to actually set up this fund, which would be similar to the Healthy People Capital Fund, but improving upon it. And so one of the things we're going to be doing in the next weeks and months, and I do want to raise this to your guys' attention, because Ren and I will be following up with everybody in the Sugar Smart and Sustainable Food Places Network, is actually to get your views, first of all, if the sugar levy funding has been spent on specific projects within schools, that we would like to hear from you guys in terms of what it's been spent on, and what the kind of, what the outcomes have been, to build a few case studies. But apart from that, we want to hear from local campaign leads what this kind of fund can do locally. So making the argument for doing it. And it's specifically projects where it's kind of like one-off projects that improve children's access to food. So this is kind of like infrastructure and resources, things that you can spend a few £1,000s on this year that have a long-lasting impact, rather than funding something that requires year-on-year funding. So it wouldn't go towards things like expanding free school meals, or things that we argue actually should be funded year-on-year and should not be tied to something like a tax, which can fluctuate year-on-year. I hope that makes sense. So we will be following up with you guys for case studies, and also we're developing a survey that we would like you guys to fill out, but also crucially to send to your colleagues and local authorities, as well as your schools network, particularly head teachers. So we do want to hear from head teachers. So that's a big piece of work coming up basically between now and I think probably through the end of September. We're trying to time it for the autumn spending review that the government, we don't know the dates on that, but we anticipate it won't be before late September or October. So I just want to log that with you guys. Really, really keen to get your views on that. We'd like to publish something that we can sort of present to say, look, this is the local areas have spoken. We need this money to really be targeted for projects that will increase children's access to healthy food for the long term. So that's our sugar levy stuff. And as I mentioned with the advertising, I have a feeling, considering what's happened during lockdown, many junk food brands have certainly lost some of their revenue. I have a suspicion and a concern that unhealthy food and drink advertising in the lead up to Christmas will skyrocket. If I'm proven wrong, I'll be grateful. But so one of the things that we're looking at is actually what we do in the lead up to Christmas. In previous years, we've done campaigning around restricting the promotional tactics of Coca-Cola through their holiday Coke truck tour. So this year, we're going to really zero in on a local unhealthy advertising, so particularly in places like transport hubs. And what we're going to do is as a kind of to go alongside that is really promote local areas adopting healthy eating advertising campaigns. So like what I've shown the previous picture, which was from Lewisham, and there's other places, including Barnet, that have been doing this. So we're really keen to kind of explore bringing this. So it's not just about undoing some of the impact that junk food advertising in the lead up to the holidays has on local health outcomes, but it's also actually creating a narrative for a healthier alternative, particularly using those kind of built physical spaces to promote healthier messages. So those are the two things. So definitely watch this space. We'll be getting in touch with you guys and continuing this effort of coordinated actions around these important issues. And so now I suppose I will Sofia, unless there's anything else to add, I can pass on to Anna from Wandsworth. Great. Anna, if you can unmute yourself,
Hello.
And also you can use the share.
Hi everyone, so my name's Anna and I run the Wandsworth campaign. So I suppose initially we had planned to have things in real life with lots of events. So we are currently about to launch a food bus. So we've taken a big London bus and converted it into a community shop and cafe space. And that was going to be kind of the focus, and using that space to have cooking demonstrations, invite health professionals to kind of inform the community about the dangers of sugar, amongst other things. But obviously COVID-19 happened and that became impossible. So I'll just share my screen. Oh. never done this before, so I don't know what's happening. It won't let me share my screen.
Have you? Oh.
Let me
So
try
you click
again.
share screen and it's okay.
Oh, yeah, good.
Yeah.
Okay, so basically we focused on the three kind of main aims: to inform the public about the dangers of sugar consumption, to empower local residents to make healthier choices, and also to promote drinking water and refillable water bottles as opposed to sugary drinks. So from that kind of came up with some different kind of online social media content. So in terms of informing the public, I reached out to a number of doctors, dentists, nutritionists, specifically kind of the, I suppose, influencer type of health professionals that are quite big on Instagram, or other kind of lobbying groups that have quite a social media presence, and some kind of infographic based content for our Twitter and Facebook page. In terms of empowering local residents, I reached out to some, again, like Instagram kind of strong chefs from the local area, and got them to make some cooking demonstrations for us. Also, again, some more graphics. We'll come on to those in a little bit. And there's an organisation called Refill that are very focused on refillable water bottles, and getting businesses to sign up to having people come into their business and be able to fill their water bottle without having to buy something. So we're kind of coordinating some content together to promote where and how you can refill your water bottle in the borough of Wandsworth. In terms of promotion of the videos, we actually found it quite difficult to, in fact, I messaged every single school in Wandsworth and got 0 responses. And that was a lot of emails. So I think with COVID and furlough and all the rest of it, people were just not responding. So instead, I reached out to a lot of Mumsnet, and like Mums of Battersea, Mums of Balham, kind of Facebook groups and Twitter sites, and kind of with them tried to promote it that way. And also with the kind of local newsy sites, which is like a very small media outlet that's very based on local news. So far, we've got a couple, well, 3 kind of cooking demonstrations of kind of low sugar, or actually no sugar, desserts or alternatives to processed food that has a lot of sugar in it that you might not expect, like pasta sauces and things like that. Also from Bart's Dental School, we've got a couple of videos there to kind of highlight what sugar does to your teeth. They've kind of made a really nice animation for us, and also like best practice in terms of brushing and oral health. Also a group of med students who lobby for better teaching of nutrition in med school. They've also made a kind of animation that is released today to inform what sugar does to your body in general. And also coming up, there is a nutritionist, the Sugar Doctor is their kind of branding, who's also going to inform about kind of the more habitual aspect of consumption of sugar. So I've just got a little kind of flavour of the content calendar. So every Wednesday, we're releasing a video through our YouTube account, but then that is also promoted through our social media and their social media as well, the people giving the video. Every Monday, we release like a little teaser video, so maybe a 20-30 second like flavour of what's going to happen on Wednesday. And then we've also got some of the graphics here as well that I was talking about earlier to kind of inform the public. So we've got like a did you know style graphic, which actually no, let's start with the other one, like a top tip to reduce your sugar type of graphic, which is this one here. So that's kind of bi-weekly. And then we also have the did you know one. So the first one was kind of highlighting how much sugar is the maximum that you should be having. And then things like this, I mean, unexpected sources of sugar, for example, a tin of baked beans, which you wouldn't necessarily immediately suspect is incredibly high in sugar content. So yeah, I suppose that's kind of what we've been doing to take it digital. I mean, moving forward, we're going to try and make it in real life, but it's very kind of tenuous at the moment as to when that will be. But yeah, thank you very much. And stop sharing.
Thank you, Anna. Really interesting. It's really cool how you got local people and including med students to create content for you, because I think it's not just you have fresh content for your audiences, but you're also creating allies locally. So that's really, really good. I suspect you had lots of events planned, is that right?
Well, I mean, when I took over the campaign, it was in March. So I hadn't planned anything, and then obviously lockdown happened. But the idea was to have the things that are happening digitally in real life as events and invite schools in. And moving forward, that's something that we would kind of like to do when they start replying to their emails.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think your presentation will resonate to other campaigners who had, you know, lots of activity planned but now had to move everything online. So feel free to pop you know, your ideas or experiences in the chat as well. So me and Vera were keeping an eye on the chat to see if there's any questions. No direct questions as such, but there was an interesting question from Joe regarding the sugar levy money, which I think it might be worth for you, Vera, to come up and clarify how local authorities can use those funds. Because I think this will be important for this group. So it might not just be a question for Joe.
Yes, no, I think it's good, and I didn't offer like a kind of a Q&A. As far as I understand, it really differs by local authority. So every local authority will receive a portion of the sugar levy income to be spent locally, and I think that it's we're sort of, the challenge that we have is that there is no kind of trail or clarity on how that's being spent. However, I think as Ruby pointed out, as well as Hannah, so from Devon and Durham, respectively, is that, you know, there is some local authorities are pulling that money together to be spent on capital projects. And so some local authorities will have like a kind of a fund that schools can dip into. And as I might, please do correct me, any of you guys, if I'm wrong, but as I understand, in some areas, schools will have just received a bit of money, sort of without any kind of, I don't want to say it's strings attached, but sort of no kind of clarity on sort of how it's spent. So as far as we're aware, in some areas, the money has been spent on things like fixing leaky roofs or removing asbestos, because that, you know, that does have to do with children's health. But we have very serious misgivings about that, because that kind of infrastructure improvement should be, it should be covered be outside of the levy. The levy funding is intended to really connect the money from, you know, sugary drink sales with improving children's health as far as their diets and their exercise are concerned. So that is not actually how the levy was sort of sold to the public, and not really how it was kind of intended to be spent. And I do feel that, you know, if we use this money to fix cracks, if you will, in the system, it actually, you know, it hides the fact that, you know, many of our schools have a crumbling physical infrastructure that does need focus. So, so I think to answer your guys' question, it really it differs from local authority to local authority. In my view, that creates what I would call like kind of a postcode lottery that, you know, depends on which school your children go to. They may benefit from this or they may not. And so what we want to see is a leveling of the playing field and a real targeting of this money where it can actually, it can do its intended purpose. So, and what we're proposing for, I think we're still developing the kind of the elements of our proposal, which is why we're quite keen to speak with, you know, with you guys within our network and with head teachers, because we want to make sure that it actually makes sense for local areas. But the idea of a fund is that it would allow a kind of narrative for how it's being spent, rather than being a kind of a competitive thing necessarily. It's just at the moment, there's really no, there is really no kind of good way of capturing how that money is being spent and whether it is having an impact. I hope that answers the questions, but I think this is the beginning of a conversation, so you guys will have local knowledge and experience that ourselves at Sustain are really, really keen to pull together.
Thanks. I see interesting comments here, for example, from Hannah in County Durham, saying funds in the county were spent on school growing infrastructure. It sounds quite positive. So I think there's lots we can learn from you guys locally. And Anna, there's lots of interest in your video from med students, especially, like some say, there's not much nutrition teaching in med school. So this might be an interesting group of people that other Sugar Smart campaigns might start to think about. And this is really good because that's how we, you know, by sharing, we learn from each other, we take good ideas that are happening in a place to other local campaigns. And I remember a very early conversation we had in the Sugar Smart campaign around water companies. And suddenly, you know, from a good idea that became a major feature of many Sugar Smart campaigns locally, when they started to engage with their water companies to start promoting water as the most sustainable drink one can have. So interesting, Anna, you raised a really good question here. So if you have a link to that video that was made by med students, please share it in the chat. Or when if it's not available yet, maybe you can send it to us and we can flag it to all the campaigners, because there's lots of interest in the chat.
So it's actually released at 3 p.m. today, and that will be promoted through our social media. And I always tag Sugar Smart Wandsworth, hashtag Sugar Smart Wandsworth, so you can find it there.
Good. So keep an eye on that, and I will circulate it to all the participants, because I suspect the email will go out after 3 today, so I can include a link for that. Thank you. All right, Hillary, I'd like to send this to the med school here if permitted. Of course, please send it to the whole world. Great stuff. So just keep using the chat function to keep sharing what you're doing. And Pearl, I think you're next.
Morning, everyone. Thanks for the presentation, Anna. Really love those graphics and really exciting work. So I am also going to share my screen, but just to include some nice pictures that we've got from our project. Give me 1 second, thank you. Hopefully that's all there now. So yeah, thanks for having me on the call today. I am going to talk a little bit about our Veg Cities campaign this year. I'll start off with a bit of background about the campaign over the last year or so, and what we were planning to do building on that. And then I'll talk a bit about what we actually did due to COVID-19 and what we're planning to do to build on that now. And then finally, I'll show you the Veg Cities dashboard, which I'm sure loads of people on the call are already really familiar with, but hopefully helpful for people who are new. And also I always find it useful to have a bit of a reminder, because sometimes I forget about it. So to start off, in a way, we were quite fortunate with our Veg Cities campaign because it's something we've worked on for a couple of years. We firstly worked on it through developing the wider Peas Please programme, which Sofia already mentioned, around systematically looking at how we can increase veg consumption by making changes across every element of the food system. And then we tried to put some of those principles into practice with our own Veg Cities campaign in Cardiff last year. So last year we were really quite ambitious, particularly around portions and increasing portions of veg served, focusing on workplaces, schools and large institutions like universities and council and other places. So we created a workplace toolkit which had loads of really helpful suggestions and resources to increase staff veg consumption. We pitched that at wellbeing champions and professionals within workplaces, the kind of people who are looking for activities to do that are fun with their staff. And we also had 2 schools resources. We had a kind of comprehensive pack of resources for primary school teachers, and then alongside that a Peas Please parent pack, which had a cuddly pod of peas, which were very cute, which could go home with the children, alongside some resources that they could complete over the weekend and outside of school, taking it in turns to go around the class. We also complemented this working with Cardiff Council, who are responsible for the majority of school catering here in Cardiff, and they started offering an extra portion of veg for free with every school meal for any child. It was an opt-in system, so we need to do a bit more monitoring about what the impact of that was, but the offer was there. So through those measures, alongside a total of 40 pledges in the city, we were estimating that that was around an extra 100,000 portions of veg consumed each year. So that was 2019, and as you can see, that was quite ambitious and it was quite broad, looking at trying to make change across the whole city. So to develop that, we were looking at doing much more targeted work for this year. So it had 3 strands. The first was to help create or help develop the existing growing network, Edible Cardiff. It's existed for a number of years, but it hasn't had much dedicated resource. So it hasn't really taken off, or it hadn't really taken off. So we wanted to make this a bit more of an active network, supporting Social Farms and Gardens Wales, who are leading the network. And the timing was really key with this as well, because Cardiff Council had just published the food strategy for the council, and it really included a significant section on local food production, including creating a clear food growing plan for the city. So we really wanted Edible Cardiff to be this kind of vehicle to help inform and make that change as well. Looking for an overall outcome of increased local food production. So secondly, was looking at how we could embed veg cities into all of the council's policy and operational work. So looking at creating a sustainable food framework for the council that would cover all of their internal, external activities. And then also building on some of the work before of creating a staff growing space and piloting a greengrocer at county halls, so that all 8,000 or so staff who are based there have loads more opportunity to access veg in the workplace. And then finally, the third element of the plan was what I've been calling throw the kitchen sink at 2 areas of Cardiff. The idea was that we were going to deploy all the different interventions that we've been working on. So the workplace toolkit, the schools resources, working with local retailers around Healthy Start and using veg power, and linking in with the growing sites, and doing that in 2 areas, 2 different wards of Cardiff, to see what is, and do a bit of monitoring of what's effective or not. So we're just kind of getting started, and then obviously everything changed a little bit. But I think, so strand 2 and 3 are progressing a little bit more slowly, but we are, the draft sustainable food framework for the council's gone to cabinet and does include 2 portions of veg, so there's a little bit of progress there. But we wanted to really see some momentum around the food growing agenda, because it was so high on kind of people's radar and really exacerbated the need for it during the pandemic. And so early on, there was kind of murmurings from different community groups saying, oh, we want to be doing something about helping people grow their own food at home. A few groups started doing stuff. So community gardens were sending out seeds to their members so that they could grow at home. Other groups were sharing stuff with their neighbours. There was one organisation that teamed up with the council nurseries who normally sell a load of plants, have a plant shop and sell at the beginning of the year that they couldn't. So they distributed the flowers that they weren't able to sell. So there was kind of all this stuff happening, like little bits of stuff happening. And we had some meetings about, is there a way we could work together to do something a bit bigger? And then Food for Life get-togethers, which operates in Cardiff alongside another number of other areas in the UK, repurpose some of their small grants to do with COVID response. So these kind of, I think, I'll move on. Oh, I should be flicking through my slides and I haven't. I've just got some nice photos here to share. So that we were working with, and we kind of coordinating between 6 projects, and 4 of those received between £500 and £1,000 of funding from Food for Life get-togethers. And they were all slightly different, but they all involved helping people grow in some sort of form. So we've got some examples like Cardiff Salad Garden is a social enterprise. They grow salad in the middle of the city. And they worked with a community centre to give out plants, pots and compost that could be grown in front gardens. Like the front garden is maybe pushing it in terms of how they're termed, like normally where people keep the bins. So like those little spaces in the front of houses, they were giving big plants, pots and compost to people there. There was this picture here is the Social Farms and Gardens project, which was these little kits here that can be completely grown on a windowsill, so people don't even need a garden or anything. It's all self-contained. We linked them up with the food response work that Food Cardiff is also working on, like linking up with the food parcels that were going out from community groups and other places, and from the council as well. And then there were other projects, like one worked with a cluster of GP practices to give away plants when people were visiting GPs. Another one was a community garden that, because they were based on an allotment site and the rules in Wales are slightly different, couldn't have as many visitors over. So they did recipe sharing online and picked some winners each week to win a pack of the crop, some seeds, some plants and some other stuff. So, and then there was kind of schools, mutual aid groups, care homes. Through these 6 projects, we covered, that's the council nursery there, that was, part of it was that part of the success of it was that they were able to produce lots of plug plants for a lot cheaper than you'd get, say, at the garden centre. So that worked really well, kind of using their space that wasn't being used. But by working with these 6 projects, and they were all working with maybe 5 projects as well, like separately, we were able to just create this big citywide movement. So we estimated that there was a total of 14,000 plants and seed kits went out to over 3,000 households in Cardiff. And alongside this, it was engaging hundreds of people through online workshops, videos, question and answer sessions, social media stuff as well. We didn't do a full evaluation yet, we still need to. And to be honest, we went into the project quite quickly and didn't do what we should have done, which is like plan out an evaluation at the beginning. So we're doing that a bit retrospectively, but we know from the projects that have been collecting information when giving out plants, around 70 to 80% of people had never grown anything before. So we know that it's new people, it's not just doing what people would have done anyway. And we've got some really nice stories with it as well, like people saying that they, one person received some plants and so they brought so much joy that they painted their house as a result of it and wanted like their home to be nicer because they had the plants. So some lovely things like that. So we're now really keen to build on this work. Like it's had such a big impact, but it's quite interesting thinking about how we build on it and replicate, because I think in a way it's almost a project that wouldn't have been able to happen if it wasn't for the pandemic. Like people put in so much work and effort, and there was funding to cover plants and physical equipment, but people put in a lot of time themselves. So we're looking at kind of what are the options to keep up this momentum without people burning out and without it being too much. So while we work on this kind of more long-term plan, we're hoping to celebrate the project in October by having a kind of series of events in the lead up to World Food Day, where communities in the city can share what they've actually grown from these plants, share seeds for next year, and look and plants for over the winter. Hoping to run this in a way a little bit like the Big Lunch, where there's a concept and a scheme, but then it's out to communities and groups to do things together, rather than say like Cardiff Veg Cities or Food Cardiff being the actual organizer of everything, because it would just be too much. So, and then what else we're trying to do, I'm with my Please Please hat on, giving a little plug to the Veg Advocates programme, which I know some people are already involved in. But the next phase of Please Please includes aiming to recruit 100 veg advocates from across the UK. So people who might not really be eating much veg at the moment, but are keen to make a difference, who want to use their experience to hold the pledges to account and the policymakers to account. So I'm trying to embed this in some of our Cardiff work as well. So at the moment, there's a survey out, it's available across the UK to collect people's stories on veg access during COVID. We're also going to be running some photo voice workshops where people will be able to take some photos of their kind of daily experience of fruit and veg, and kind of talk about it based on the photos, and then doing some more workshops to recruit advocates. So that's our plans. How am I for time, Sophia?
Do you want to show the dashboard?
Yeah, do I have time to do that?
2 minutes?
2 minutes, cool. So I'll skip through these final photos, but as you can see, it's we also never have good photos, so we put a bit of money in to actually get some professional photography done, which it's not something I'm normally like, oh, that's a bit of a waste, but it made such a difference in terms of the promotion and getting people involved. So it was really nice for once to have some nice photos. Cool. So I'm going to exit this, and can you still see my screen? So I'm going to go on the dashboard as a participant rather than as a coordinator. You will see something slightly different. But for anyone who doesn't know, all of the data that's recorded in this dashboard then gets fed into the Please Please annual report. Rebecca's on the line and will know I've forgotten the amount of millions of portions of veg it was last year, and I should know off the top of my head. Maybe Rebecca, you can put it in the chat. But it's something I find in Cardiff quite politically useful for our Veg Cities campaign to be like, well, this is okay, we've got a few 100,000 portions of veg here, this is amazing, but that is feeding into these millions of portions that are being served. So if you're a participant, and here's one I've made earlier. So you've I'll show you how to update a pledge and how to log a new one. So I've done one for promoting veg because we've just launched a new project called Cardiff Cooking Together. After this first project was Cardiff Growing Together. So we've built on it now with Cardiff Cooking Together, and we've got a Facebook group where people are sharing recipes and different community groups are getting involved. So I've put here that we're going to engage 300 people through this, and all I would need to do now is so we've got, you can see how many random numbers I've been putting into boxes. We've now got 320 members of the group, so I'll just update that there. I don't need, you can give more details, but I don't need to. And then as a coordinator, you'll then see that on your dashboard that that's the current number, and that will then get fed into the Please Please reporting. And then if I wanted to do make another pledge, I'm just having a look at what we are doing, that I should have prepared this one earlier. Let's see, set up a network of growing spaces. Just click let's do it, and I'm going to say we've got we've probably got, well, let's say those 6 projects we've got involved at the moment. I'll just say 6 projects, but hoping to expand the network. I shouldn't try and do everything at once. Do 20, for example. And then let's do it. And then you can go back in and update that in the same way that you did before. And I'm really, it's quite challenging, but I'm really keen to try and get our community groups, businesses, anyone making a pledge in Cardiff to be using the system themselves. I know for some veg cities, you've had a lot more success of having a kind of central coordinator that can update this on behalf of your cities. So I think, I'm sure either one is good, but I'm trying to push it out to try and make sure people update them. So that's one of my things I need to do now ahead of, I think the Please reporting cycle ends, Rebecca, is it this month, the 31st of July? So I'll be trying to get our participants to update their pledges over the next month so that can go in. Cool, I've talked a lot at everyone, so I'm going to stop sharing now. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Pearl, for that. I think you, on the question of the photos, everyone was quite impressed in the chat. And I think you've put across a really good point, that sometimes it's worth investing in a professional photographer to make sure you have photos that really illustrate your work and give justice to your work. And I know that locally you also had quite a lot of success in getting press coverage for the work you've done. And I think having those, those photos to record the work really helps. So I think that can be a reminder that sometimes, yeah, it is worth that extra investment. Yeah.
Thank you.
And thank you for bringing the dashboard and reminding us how important it is to update it. And I think the coordinators here will know that the system for recording the pledges locally, it's very similar for Veg Cities and Sugar Smart. It's a similar system. And local coordinators can encourage their participants to update pledges, or they can update them for them. And it's because we can then aggregate all that impact at the national level that we can say things like in Veg Cities, we had 600,000 people engaged in the campaign nationally, or we had 10 million additional portions of veg being served after aggregating all the action by the local Veg Cities campaigns. So it's never too much to reiterate the importance of keep updating the dashboard. And if Veg Cities campaigners or Sugar Smart campaigners would like some help or tips to use their dashboard, please get in touch with myself or Vera. Yeah, and I think this brings us to the end of the meeting. Vera, have you been keeping an eye on the chat?
Yes.
Is there anything I've missed?
No, I don't think so. You've touched on the participants and the importance of updating the dashboard. We do recognize that participants locally are often very busy actually doing the delivery elements. So it is useful, I put it in the chat, but it is useful as a coordinator of the campaign to do updates on their behalf. I think particularly where a bit of detail, they don't have a chance to put it. But it's useful, particularly when it comes to actually reporting, because you can export the details of your participants' activities as a spreadsheet. You can use this as a conversation tool for bringing in other partners, other local kind of stakeholders, local partners, if you will, potential participants into your work locally. So I often encourage campaign leads to use it as much a tool for them, the dashboard, as a tool for their respective participants. But we do recognize that, oftentimes it's not necessarily easy to update the dashboard if you're also updating in other places. That's the only thing I was going to add. But we're always here on the end of the line. So whether it's Sofia, myself, or Ren, so do get in touch with us. Oh, and Oh, Abby has asked something. Ooh, I love it, that word. Wondering about what people think of the new obesity strategy, and I think, as Abby put it, the new war against obesity. So you're mentioning the kind of the language being used, I suppose, the bellicose language around obesity. Yeah, and I think that's a really good point. I know that we're kind of coming to the end. However, we're aware that there is a bit of work being put together around by the Frameworks Institute around talking about obesity, and so one of the kind of some of the challenges that it can pose, and certainly there have been issues that have come up with the obesity strategy, particularly around the language. So I suppose, I don't know, maybe what we can do is actually, even if we draw this to a close, if people want to stay and put in the chat, but I know for myself, I've been quite aware this week of the importance of language and framing and how we talk about the obesity strategy. I feel has really strong, good progress in it. But we're also aware, especially as a network of local practitioners, that that some of the language and some of the focus on personal responsibility over environmental factors can put people in really sort of emotionally painful positions, particularly if they're struggling with weight issues. So we're quite aware of that, Abby. I think it's a good point to put up. But I would say, no doubt, please, if you guys are on the Rise Up list, I just wanted to plug the Sustainable Food Places email list, which I did a link earlier. So if you're not on the email list, please do sign up, because you are campaign coordinators. We want you to be part of the same chat. I think it'd be really great, Abby, to actually raise this in the SFP chat to keep that conversation going. It's certainly useful to us, myself, Sofia, and others within Sustainable Food Places. You raised a really good point. Yeah.
There was a question earlier from Sonia that I missed, so sorry for that. It would be valuable to have more details about the Please reporting schedule and how that data is used. This would help encourage reluctant participants. This might be the case for other campaigners there. So all the Veg Cities data is aggregated and feeds into the Please report. Rebecca, do you want to very quickly say what's the plan for that annual report? But that's how it works. So I think if participants know that all the information is aggregated at the national level and feeds into this wider initiative, I think that can make people feel that their numbers count. So Rebecca, do you want to tell us about the timeline for that?
Yeah, thanks, Sophia and Pearl. And yeah, again, great pictures. Very impressive. Yeah, so just to give you a bit more information. So Please, as Sophia said, is almost a sort of umbrella name or program for all of our work around increasing the amount of veg everybody in the UK is eating. So that includes Veg Power, our sort of corporate or organisational Please pledges, so for example retailers, and of course Veg Cities. And so what we do on an annual basis is we draw together all the progress everybody's made from across those streams of work and produce a progress report, which is just really useful for us all in terms of encouraging participants and getting further buy-in, policy engagement, and so on and so forth. And it's also just a nice opportunity to shout about any particularly noteworthy work that's been going on. So this year, our Please reporting year runs from July to June, end of June. So we've been collecting all the data from the previous year this July. So the deadline's this Friday, but there is a little bit of wiggle room for an extension because Sophia, I think, am I right in thinking you're going to submit the Veg Cities data mid-August? Yeah. But I would really urge you, if your participants can sort of update you on any work they've been doing, particularly anything around supporting low-income groups. I know a lot of Veg Cities campaigns have been super busy during COVID in providing emergency support. So we're really keen to hear both the sort of qualitative case studies side of things, as well as obviously any sort of more quantitative engagement or portion data. And it's all makes a huge difference to how we can illustrate the progress we're making. So very much appreciated. And yeah, feel free to drop me a line as well as Sofia if you have any other questions on Peas Please.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And it's 11:01, so that brings us to the end of the meeting. And just a reminder that, you know, this is the first meeting in this format. We're keen that whatever we do next really suits what we need. So let me and Vera know if you have ideas for themes, issues that you would like to bring to the next meeting. And let us know if you would like to present what you're doing locally, because that will inspire a lot of other campaigners around the country. So stay in touch, and we'll see you all very soon.